Hi, I'm Eva and this is Kate, and together we form Rogan Nash Architects. We're here today to present to you our project The High Life, which was actually an apartment renovation in Auckland City, in the heart of Auckland City, and our kitchen, which is within this larger project.
We were really lucky with this project because we've got very generous and clients who have actually worked with a number of times before, and like Eva said, this is for their apartment in town, and we had a few different references that we were looking at. One of them was keying off our clients' love for New Zealand design and art. They've got an extensive collection of art, and this was one reference we were looking at from Fiona Partington. We liked the palette that comes through. It's really moody and deep, those colours, and obviously the strong New Zealand references. Another one of the references, there's kind of about four today, was to do with their vintage furniture. They've actually got a lot of British pieces which they've collected over time, so there's those kind of leathers and brass and things like that which come in. So we were looking at those kind of inlaid jewellery box, a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek reference here to the Great Gatsby, and then coming back to those different eras, the layering of vintage that we have in this project.
And then also another reference moment and also a metaphor for the project is the champagne, which is the joy, the celebration. Our clients entertain a lot, so the project had to encapsulate that, those moments, and the joyful moment, the champagne popping, but also the smaller moments, the chocolates within a box, those smaller moments, just as important as those bigger ones. And the project is here, located in Auckland City on Queen Street. It's the penthouse apartment at the top of this smaller apartment building in Auckland.
And so, as we said before, we renovated the entire apartment. The kitchen is really the keystone of the project, but the way it forms into part of the rest of the apartment is is a significant part of the project.
So you can see that there's a really important journey down from the lift corridor all the way down to the kitchen. The kitchen was just so important for the overall design of the project. Well, as we mentioned, the clients entertain a lot, so it had to be appropriate for just two people or parties of like 100, 150 people. And so we had to really think about that from the very beginning, how this was going to function. So there's sort of two ways that the two main scenarios that we designed for in terms of setting out the kitchen. One was when guests come in, they come down the journey of the gallery to the kitchen. They arrive actually at this space, with that side's closed off to the service area, and people arrive down this end, which is at the bar and sitting area, and then the bar that opens is outward facing towards both the view, the deck and the living spaces. And then conversely, on just a day-to-day basis, the kitchen had to really function if there's just two people there. So that's when the door remains open and the kitchen can be more connected with the rest of the apartment.
So these images kind of express those scenarios that we were talking about and that procession through. So when we're looking at our palette for the kitchen, we're really feeding back into the rest of the apartment as well in these vintage pieces. So on the left, that's coming out of the lift and walking down to the kitchen. In the middle is the sitting fireplace area, which is adjacent to the kitchen, and then obviously the dining room. So all of those materials, of those we're talking about the kitchen today, speak to those materials of the kitchen as well.
Just looking at the kitchen in a larger scale plan, you can see it was really anchored in the middle of that floor plan, but we've designed it in distinct zones. So the first zone being the working space, which is the middle of the kitchen here, which we've got all our prep and work areas, which opens out to a raised bar area up here, a breakfast bar area. So perfect for conversing. You've got the fireplace and the view beyond. And this is where guests first enter if there's a party going on, and they walk over and past the bar, which is outward facing out into the larger part of the apartment where guests can come and mingle and have a great time, which is really important to our clients. And then behind us is the scullery space, which can be, if they've got caterers in, it's a service area. And which can be away, closed off, and sort of out of the mind's eye when you're entertaining.
So in the true way, it really does have a proper scullery where it could be a catering moment. We've also looked at Frank Lloyd Wright's idea of compression and release to play with these levels. So even though we have these big moments, these big scenarios, there's also these moments of performance where there could be someone at the bar, or if you're at the raised bar to the kitchen, you could be looking down on someone catering a whole meal. So it all becomes those different events and how they relate to each other.
And so those smaller moments are also just as important. So the smaller moments like the small chocolates in the box just taking a bit of time out. So we wanted this kitchen to be dynamic and flexible in terms of its use. So this is just a sitting area beside the bar. It's raised up with the kitchen lower, a few steps down, so you can hide all that mess underneath the bar on a daily basis, if that's how you kind of work, or even if there is a party going on.
So you can see here we've got one of the examples of their kind of furniture pieces, which are vintage luggage that they have stacked as coffee table in one space. And then coming through in that same kind of feeling, bringing to underneath the bar, we've got this panel timber work, which I think speaks to that kind of British vintage idea. And then we've got layering of these different marbles. So we've got the titanium gold on the top, then coming down to the Taj Mahal, which is the splashback and the kitchen bench. And then you can see the layering up of some of these New Zealand artworks that we were speaking of before.
Just thinking about the materials palette, this is the bar area. We've got the smoked oak, which is referenced throughout the apartment on the flooring and also in the cabinetry. We've got the brass accents in the handles, the tapware, and even the sinks. And also at the base of the bar where we've got the brass footrest. So if you are leaning against the bar having a drink, you've got somewhere to put your feet. And then in this one, we've got the green Guatemala granite, or marble rather, and the leathered bar base as well, which we've panelled. They're
all kind of those opulent moves, but again, we're trying to make it feel domestic and entertaining at the same time. We were keen to bring the green in because it had that sort of British racing green as well, which really felt like it made sense. And again, you can see this layering up of the stone and how it comes into those more intimate moments of the kitchen if it's just single use.
And so that's the Taj Mahal granite and the titanium gold, which is used in varying positions just to add texture and also to define the different spaces. Looking at the bar, this is our moment of joy. We had a custom made a light fitting for here, just because you see it and it becomes joyful, it becomes enlivening, it becomes a talking point. It's a real anchor of the whole room. And then you can see that material palette coming through here on the bar, and this is outward facing to the rest of the space.
Again, it's one of the spaces which relate directly to the kitchen, the sitting area just beyond. You can see our reference there from Great Gatsby and how we're bringing that through, and it reflects that panelling from the kitchen and how the stone comes into the fireplace.
Just thinking about the workspaces within the kitchen, this is the scullery area, so you can see those materials referenced and pulled back with a slightly more simplistic splashback compared to the stonework in the main body of the kitchen, but still that same reference pulled through the brass on the sink, the negative details and the tapware, and then pulling through to the larger concepts that we had about the materials palette, drawing from that vintage furniture and pieces that the client already had and that were in our initial conversations with them.
When we look at our references, sometimes we're looking at really small objects, even though it might be as close as I'm going to get to a double swan. I think it's a Cartier ring. It is nice to think about design on a small scale as well as a really large scale and how that relates to the tactile moments of holding a handle or that sort of thing in the kitchen.
And so just back to that workspace again through here, you're lower down than the seating area, so you can feel like you can make a mess if that's how you like to cook, and it can still be nicely contained with everything working well. Obviously the ergonomics and the work triangle was all worked through as well.
Even in this area, we've brought the brass through to the little inlay negative moment and into the switching as well, which you can see over behind there on the rear wall.
And then doesn't want to play the last. Oh,
we've had a little moment.
Here we go. Hopefully this
And this gives us our final glimpse. We actually, look, we just thought we'd put this in. I know it's not quite the kitchen, but we did do some bespoke lift doors, which we thought you would enjoy, including some bespoke light fittings above. We couldn't help ourselves. It's all kitchen to us. So we're happy to answer any questions. I'm sure there's a few things to cover.
Thank you both. It's incredibly... the detailing is beautiful, and it's such an opulent space, and I think the way you've drawn, as you said, that so many elements of the whole apartment into this jewel in the centre, it's incredibly well done. I was quite interested in the actual floor plan, like how much of it, being quite an old looking building, were you having to work within the existing parameters, and you know, the whole step down, and was that all? Great
question. Shall I scoot back to the floor plan for a moment? And I'll just talk through more about some of those parameters that we actually had to work within, because there's obviously, being a penthouse apartment and an older building, there was all the existing service shafts we had to work through, both the electrical and the fire requirements, and the plumbing was also a trick that we had to play with, because it was an older apartment. We couldn't go obviously underneath the floor to access the services. It had to be on top of the slab. So the raised floors were both a practical move and an aesthetic move, because we had to, it was great because it added that compression and release, and also the height and volumes from the kitchen down low, hiding all of that working surface away. But then in the cabinetry, between those two raised levels, we could then hide the plumbing. So it's actually all concealed in there, because there was some very stringent requirements we had to work with.
And with every job there's constraints, and you've got to look at all those constraints of just parameters of the design and how can you make it work to your advantage. We weren't allowed to have any light fittings, which were recessed, so we've had the ability to make everything bespoke.
So was the lounge going down?
The lounge actually steps up.
It steps up. Okay.
Yes.
So while you're looking down.
Yes, you're actually moving out onto a deck outside, so we have a whole lot of different levels that we're working with. So even though it's an apartment, there's quite a lot of outdoor space.
Yeah, and so that's why we made it work to our advantage, so that the bar was raised at the upper level, and then the kitchen is the few steps down.
At the original floor level.
It's a really lovely project and great presentation. I thought the way that you fed through about these kind of smaller moments within this layering came across, which the materiality also does really well. What's your favourite moment?
Working with Eve is always my favourite moment. Any day that I get up to be an architect to get to do this, I mean, you know, but seriously,
this one here is actually, when you're in this space, behind you is that fireplace, and out to the view, the fireplace being the
same
lower,
stone.
the same stone repeated. It's a cosy moment, but at the same time has the expanse because of the windows beyond, and the kitchen at that slightly lower level means that you don't feel like you're trapped. But at this, even though it's the smaller, narrower part of the floor plan, but you can sit here and converse with whoever's in the kitchen. You can turn around and feel like you're in this opulent space with the fireplace behind you, and you can talk easily to both directions. You can see the view. If there's a party going on, you can also talk to that. It's just a really nice moment, and it's one of those places that you can stop and contemplate, you know, rather than just feeling like you're rushing the whole time. It's this is one of those the spaces that you are drawn to just be and relax.
I will say we were really lucky with our client on this project. We've done a number of jobs with them, and we've got a really tight project team through to the contractor. And I always want to do a shout out to our friend Kev, who built this for us.
Oh, that's good. Any other questions?
No, just I wanted to say it's a beautiful project, and I love all of the detailing through. It feels like you've really drawn on those moments from your clients, so it comes across really strongly.
Thank you.
I guess I'll also add, we live in a penthouse apartment as well, and it's old, and so we're doing a renovation at the moment, facing exactly the same issues that you guys have resolved so beautifully. Like everything is concealed. I understand the complexity of it.
Yes.
You want to do something, but you can't, so you have to work with what you've got, and you've done a really, really good job. Obviously, there's structure in there, which I believe you didn't even talk about, to house that bar, but we picked it up. So really nice resolution.
Thank you very
much.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thanks.